Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I had the music going in my own thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silver Sunday. Tonight is the night that we're going to talk about science fiction versus fantasy. If you are a regular watcher of ours, then you know the Wednesday crew had a knockdown, drag out over science fiction and fantasy, and I'm thinking that ours might go a little different because we might define the two a little bit differently. So as a way of another announcement before we get to introductions, I know you guys are going to sit there and say, wait a minute, should we be introducing ourselves? Yes, we should. I have comics.
Oh, wow.
These
Wow.
are, yes.
Oh, dang, look.
Cover.
Yep. So there, I don't know if I got them all or not, but obviously here's the cat and mouse C cover. Here's here's the cat and mouse retro version. Yeah,
The silver line at the bottom.
Yep, the classic Silverline logo there. And by the way, it's retro for those of you who aren't sure.
Black and white.
It's all in black and white.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And then of course this is the standard version. This one's in color. So
Nice.
yeah. Ah!
Uh-oh.
No.
Well, he ruined that one.
that goes in my personal stash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then there's the Kickstarter version, and now there's Trump's. This is the
Regular
C cover, and this is the this is the retro. Yeah, this is the retro for Trump's. So and then this is the A cover, and I've got the
Yeah, where's the shiny cover?
Yeah, I forgot to bring one in here. What the heck?
Do you still have the proof sheet?
Let me see if I can. Yeah. Oh, what happened? Oh, it fell.
Shame.
Yeah,
Great
it's
idea.
still here, but it fell. Let me see if I can't get a family member to bring me a copy of that. I need to send them a really quick message, and I will ask them if they will. Will you bring me a gold Trump's, please? So we'll see if look at that, I got it. Ask and you shall receive. Thank you, buddy.
Great.
So here is the gold one. They look
That's nice.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so here's a surprise thing for us. So one of the things we did, our good friends at Kablam, they were getting ready to do it. They said, hey, what do you think about doing this? And so what they've done is they kind of added an extra cover. So this is the Kickstarter version, right? But if you open it up, you get this image, right? But it's just the normal white cover, right? Like it would be just a normal cover. And then of course, then there's all the interiors. And for those who are looking, and this is something classic they did. Classy. Look at that. Put on the inside, the silver line there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
sweet.
really nice.
Yeah. So it's on the front and it's on the inside front and inside back, right?
Oh, that's cool.
So it's very, very cool. And so for all the backers, when you get to looking for your names, here you are, all of our supporters. Thank you very much. Right, in Coliseum of Comics, Tommy and I are going to be signing books down at Coliseum of Comics in the very near future, which is in Orlando. So I've got these. Got a big batch of them going out. Oh, hold on. There's something else here. I forgot. There's of course the bookmark, right?
Oh, nice.
Trump's on one side, Demon on the other from Cat and Mouse, and of course he says, "You're quitting there? Sure, I'll save your place, wimp."
Nice.
So our bookmark, and then we've got number 3 in our series of Cat and Mouse cards. And for those of you who have forgotten already, this is 1 and 2. So
nice.
There's 3 of them here,
nice.
and then this is the
back.
Yep.
Nice.
So
that is cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about those. They look fantastic. And obviously, for those of you who are trying to recognize the art, yes, that is Kevin West. Of course, we've got Kevin West, and we've got Mitch Faust. Yep, some good stuff here. And then, of course, our Trumps card, which is
cool.
Yeah, it looks like a playing card. So we are actually in the process of trying to get us a deck made. I really wanted to try to have this. My family plays a lot of cards, and I really wanted to try to get this done by Christmas so that we could actually play some cards with a set of Trump's decks. But I don't think I'm going to be able to get those, get it done. I'm still waiting on the art for it. But anyway, I've got all this here. It's fun. It's exciting. The books look fantastic. Kablam did a stellar job as usual. So the first batch of books is going to go out tomorrow. I already got probably, I think, 50 packages packaged up, and the scheduled the post office to pick it up tomorrow when they come by. So the first books are going out tomorrow. So I'm excited. The digital versions, I always like to, I know some people say, oh, well, the thing's done, you should send the digital versions out. I get it. I hear you. My personal thing has always been, I like to wait until the physical copies are out and then send all the digital versions out. So, so the digital versions will probably be sometime towards the end of the week, maybe a Thursday or Friday, kind of depending on how the rest of the fulfillment goes. But yeah, so those of you who back the Cat and Mouse and Trump's Kickstarter, start looking for your books this week, and please, let us know what you think. So, all right, so let's get into introductions as we dive into this. We may do it slightly abbreviated, depending on how everybody's feeling, because of our convention yesterday. But we're certainly going to go ahead and talk about science fiction and fantasy here. So I'm Roland Man. I am in my Santa outfit today because, as I was talking before we started, my family, because of the plague, my daughter has been here with us some, and she made the request to put Christmas decorations up. So for those of you who hold your nose at that, yes, I am one of those. If you drive by my house right now, you will see lights out on the outside of my house. So you can yell boo as you want to, but someone mentioned that someone has me around their little finger, and I'm okay with that. So we have Christmas lights up. I wonder who said that.
Are you sure you just don't want to be at the top of Santa's list? And that's why you're doing it early. They're like, look at that. He's right at the top.
It never hurts to hedge your bets with Santa, right?
It never does.
All right. So next up is John. John, tell everybody who you are.
I am John Martin. I am the inker for Friar Rush. I've also done sketch cards for Upper Deck and Dynamite. And that pretty much covers it. I'm the troublemaker here.
That's why you're the Viking Prince Voltan.
I got told a day earlier that I look like a Dane when I was stopped at the gas station. I was like, 6 o'clock in the morning, really?
So by the way, John, do you still have time for to take on a second project? You're still feeling that?
Yeah.
All right. So you want to ink Wolf's Hunter?
Are you serious?
I'm offering it to you right now.
Hell
yeah! Don't do it, John. It's a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah. All right. Well, it's all yours then. Yep. I sent the page over to with the as I told you, I sent the page over to AJ and Tim, and they had a look at it and looked at the other pages, and then hey, we like this one right here, and I said, good, me too. And so
Is this the
Probably
war one?
something like that didn't
Yes.
work in my favor.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, Pete. Yeah. So what we did, Pete, we took one page from the book and sent it out. We took page 4, I think it was, and sent it out to well, there's the 4 different inkers, but 3 of them responded, and put them back to AJ and Tim, and put it in the group and discussed it. And the selected inker was John. So
Wow! Congratulations.
Yep. John's
quite
bringing his
surprised
ink ninja skills. So, well, congratulations, dude. You did a fantastic job, certainly on Friar Rush, and so I'm very much looking forward to you doing Wolf's Hunter stuff. So, very cool. Next up is Pete. Pete, tell everybody who you are.
Hello, everybody. I am Pete. I am just the penciler, as my cap can attest. On
wait, what does it say?
You didn't see the
you
cap last time, did you?
Oh, what the heck?
That's right. You and here, yeah.
That's fantastic.
So I'm just a penciler on. Have we settled on the name now for the book?
So yeah, I think because I sent you the message in our group. Yeah, we're gonna go with Silverline Team Up Champion and Miss Fury.
Silverline Team Up Champion. That's what I'm drawing now.
Yeah.
We know what I'm drawing.
That's right.
I'm on the last page, so we finally figured out what we're going to call it.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
And I started playing with that a little bit. I got so excited once you and Roberta and Tommy were like, "Yeah, that sounds good."
Yeah,
I'm like,
cool
"Okay, let's
name.
see what it looks like." Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've drawn that. What else?
You also have your you also have your webtoons.
I've got webtoons. What's that called? On Grey Seas, right? Yeah, that's it.
What's that one called?
I've got Instagram. I've got what's that one called? That's The Last Witch Finder.
I still need to. You know what? I still got to read that one. I don't do Instagram that much, and I need to get over there and read that one. I read the webtoons, so I think I've already told you that. Enjoyed it very much, but I haven't seen the Instagram one though.
And yeah, and I've done some. If you Google Miss Meow, Jamie Tyndall's Miss Meow, which I've recently done, and I've been told my artwork is in that book.
Oh, so, cool.
Okay, cool. The preview for that's out on Friday, and then it goes to Kickstarter, I think.
But you haven't seen it yet, then, huh? No.
No, I did a load of pages, and they said certain pages are in, and they've got a number of artists on the one book, so I wasn't sure what pages of mine got selected. And
gotcha.
But
we keep you posted. You do every step of the way, right?
Yeah.
Pete's like, too much, man. Would you stop emailing me so much?
Just yeah. So I'd be interested to see what I'm in there for. It might literally just be one panel, but who knows?
Next up is Aaron.
Hey, what is up? I am the penciler on Friar Rush, and I do my own webcomic on Webtoons called Goblins, and then I am looking, hopefully at the beginning of next year, to do more stuff for Silverline. New stuff, different stuff, exciting stuff. And I think that's it.
Yeah. And I'm I've done my very best, Aaron, to be really patient and not try to hurry you along with Godly. So I know it's a special thing to you. So I'm like, okay, you know what? He's got to get this done. And it's just a matter of just some time and just kind of hang with it. So, I'm cheering you along on God Leads and watching the progress there. So yeah, excited about that.
Cool.
And by the way,
was a nudge, Aaron.
No, it was not a nudge. It was not a nudge. It was just a gentle, loving reminder kind of thing,
Oh yeah.
And by the way, for those of you who are listening, I will make sure that all the appropriate links are in the discussion. In the info. It is not there yet. I don't get to put those in until after our streams are over, and then I go back and add all the appropriate links. So I'll make sure that's in So if you're listening to this live, I'm sorry. Hopefully you were typing fast enough as they were speaking. If you're listening to this on the tape delay, then it'll all be there. And last but not least is Roberta Conroy. Roberta, tell everybody who you are.
Hi, I am just a colorist. For the next issue of Cat and Mouse and the brand new Silverline Team Up Champion Hemisphere.
Yeah.
That's right. Very cool. And Roberta,
former 90s Malibu comic.
that's right. Got that Malibu connection going. Yeah. Looks like we got Wubba saying hello, everyone. Says that it's too loud at his home tonight for him to join us, so he's going to be in the chat list. And so we miss you, John. I miss you. I'm already reading the other questions. We miss you, Wubba. But he says, "Congrats, John." Kasisi says, "Hi, all. What's up, Kasisi?"
Hey.
Ahoy.
Hadn't seen Kasisi here in a little while, so it's good to see you here. Wubba says his wife's family does Christmas from September to December.
Well,
So,
then, there you go.
yeah. My daughter would love that. She starts Christmas songs around July. I'm not really sure she ever takes Christmas songs off of her her rotation. So I don't know if I'm spilling the beans, and I may get an angry look here, but she's got a new Christmas song coming out. So yeah,
Nice.
and she's been playing it for us today, obviously, and they've got, I think she says they've got a little more tweaking. Oh, you know what? I didn't. How do I sound? Do I sound okay? I didn't hook my microphone up today. Okay. I just noticed there's not the big ball right here in front of me this time. What the heck? Yeah.
I thought you were going to start singing it then. I thought,
No.
Well, here we go.
Yeah, no, I'm not singing. If she was in here, I might ask her to do it. But no, it's very, very cool. And so we've been listening to it. It's very Christmassy. But I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be released. I know they're submitting it to iTunes and all that kind of stuff to get it out there. So once that's out there, I'll of course I'll start pushing that, because I know I'm biased, but it sounds great. So all right, any other news, anything else anybody want to add before we dive into our topic tonight?
No, I actually went to go find the page I'd inked up. I was like, that really got the job.
You know what? I forgot to share this on all the places. Hey, Brett, is it possible to get Pete up?
Uh-oh.
No. I see your phone. I see you here. I'm just trying to get him to make it a little bit bigger. Rename. That's fine. Pete's Drawing. It's British, so I should spell it Draring, right? Drawing.
No. I don't know who spelled it that way.
Drawing, isn't it? What do you say? It's drawing.
D-R-A-W.
Phil Leon says, "Hey, Roland and everybody, what's up, Phil? How you doing?" Wubba asked me if I've seen Jeff's inked page 2, and I have not yet, Wubba. Oh my goodness. I'm excited about that. Yeah, so for those of y'all who may not have caught this, you know Jeff Whiting? I know Roberta does. I know Roberta remembers the name anyway. Oh, John, of course, you know Jeff.
Yes.
He was with us in Memphis. Jeff is
I don't even have to see the page, and I know that it looks awesome.
Jeff is going to be inking Wubba on Wubba's run of Cat and Mouse. So we're very excited about that. It looked real good. Wubba said it's Filipino culture and they love Christmas. It's their biggest holiday, so that's why they do it for so long. Wayne Blackman says, "Hi, what pencil grade are you using? It looks fantastic." So that's a question for Pete.
This is a mechanical 2H.
Yeah, basic number 2.
I've actually had to put a plaster on it. I don't know if you can see this. You can't see this because it sort of snapped at the base yesterday. Or it sort of snapped. It started getting a bit wobbly. So I've had to...
What size lead you use, Peter?
2H.
Well,
no,
what size?
What size lead?
Oh, I think it's a 0.3.
0.3.
I'm just reading that. Yeah,
That's pretty small, isn't it? Or
is it 0.3 or 0.5? It's worn off. I've had this pencil for like 5 years.
0.5, I think, is the big one. That no, wait, is it
I use
0.7?
0.3. I use 0.3.
Yeah.
0.7 is the big one. 0.5 is the other one,
Middle
and
one.
then you got a 0.3. And
I think this is
0.2.
0.5. 0.3 I find just kept snapping every 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think 0.5 is what I use.
Yeah. That and I have an actual pencil 2H. If it's 2H, I use it. Hope that answers your question. It should.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Wubba says that's really small if it's like 1.3. I don't think it's 1.3, isn't it? Like just 0.3?
0.3. Yeah.
This is 0.5 actually. I can see it.
He's got a 0.5. I got a 0.3.
Oh, okay.
0.3. I found it kept snapping. I pressed too hard.
Yeah.
The actual pencil or the lead.
The
lead.
Okay, all right, I got you. Let's see, several comments running through here now. Tommy Flormani says, "Good to see everyone again. Good to see you, Tommy." Phil Leon said, "Did you see White Devil page 1?" No, I didn't see White Devil page 1 either. I have been away from the computer all day today and literally doing Christmas stuff. So I sat down here. We ate dinner, and then I guess I closed my eyes for a few minutes because my wife nudged me and she said, "Hey, it's 8:25. Don't you usually get your stream started at 8:30?" I'm like, "I do, don't I?" So apparently I was examining the back of my eyelids there for a brief moment and had to get up. So no, Phil, I have not seen White Devil page 1. For those of also who you don't know, Phil is going to be coloring White Devil. So he is working on that. Yeah. Yes, another colorist. Let's see here. I think I got them all. That's really small. Tommy says, "This is coming, man. He's just about done." Cool. Okay, so let's talk about science fiction versus fantasy. So I think what I want to do is probably go through here real quick and kind of you tell me what you prefer, and then I want to go back and then let's kind of define them. So I prefer science fiction. John, what about you? Science fiction or fantasy?
Actually, I'm a little bit of both.
You fence rider, you. All right.
No. Because in all honesty, if the story's good and heck, in this case, if it's the art's good, I'm all in it.
So I'm not asking who you voted for, right? But when you voted, you couldn't vote for both, right? You couldn't say I want him as president and him as president. You couldn't do that. You had to pick one. So
I did pick one, but I didn't.
I'm asking you to pick one
right now. I didn't vote for either of them.
Good for you. I don't like you. I don't like either one of them either. But so you don't really have a preference, science fiction or fantasy?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't. Honestly, it's sometimes I'll lean a little more fantasy, but then if a good science fiction comes around, I'm all in it.
Gotcha. Pete, what about you? Science fiction or fantasy?
I think on my banner I have I've drawn Fafhrd in the Grey Mouser.
Oh, cool!
By Fritz Lieber. So I guess technically I have to say fantasy, but in comics In comics, I think I'm probably more sci-fi.
Okay,
I don't know if there's a lot of fantasy in comics.
So all right, so that's actually a good. I didn't mean to be that specific because you said in comics. So so I think that's a good thing. Comics, what about it? But I'm just kind of asking you, Pete. What do you when you kind of consume? What do you prefer?
It's probably more fantasy.
More fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then when you're actually in comics, you consume more.
It's more sci-fi, but there's more of it. I think there's more science fiction, and I think there's less distinction in comics between the two. It's SF and F, isn't it? Sci-fi, sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that a little. That might be kind of where our spirited debate comes in, is when we start trying to define them. I think maybe. Aaron, what about you? Science fiction or fantasy?
Fantasy, strangely enough, yeah. Even though I talk a lot of science fiction, fantasy. That's usually I'm just going with what I draw the most. Most stuff I draw is fantasy based.
Yep.
So I have to go with that.
Okay, Roberta, how about you? Science fiction or fantasy?
I'm gonna have to say science fiction for me.
Okay.
The best.
Okay.
as far as storytelling and the things that really grab me.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so now let's so now that we've kind of gone through here, let's define them. And I'm gonna make John go last since he was the fence rider, right? So let's
Peter's got an admirer.
What? He's got an admirer. What?
Always nice to hear.
George Vega Art said, I heard there was going to be a sexy Brit. Where is he?
Hey, man. Yeah, we've done a few cons together. He's a good guy.
Oh, cool. Well, what's up, George? I heard there's going to be a sexy Brit. Where is he?
This guy right here. And he knows it. He knows it. It's fine.
Wubba says, I'm both. They mix well. Phil says, I like sci-fi, fantasy, and horror all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
And George Vega then did a bunch of smiley faces there, Pete.
Good.
All right, so how do we define those? Okay, so I heard the Wednesday Whammers talking about a lot of different definitions. I know I heard Tim quoting some of the stuff that he learned in our program, actually, because they teach the Fantastica is what they call it, and group a bunch of us stuff under it. Yeah, it's all. I'm not gonna tell Tim. I know he's not gonna come back and listen. I think it's a bunch of academic baloney, Keep in mind too. Now, when I was in college, I worked at a bookstore, right? So we had science fiction and fantasy, right? We had those sections, and we had books that were science fiction. We had books that were fantasy, but it was all lumped into the science fiction and fantasy. So I'm going to skip John here. Pete, how do you define? So I'm going to come back to you, John. I'm going to skip you permanently. Pete, how do you define science fiction and fantasy? I'm not talking about, it can be what you're accustomed to, but how do you define it for yourself? What is science fiction and what is fantasy?
Science fiction, I suppose, is set in the future. It's a commentary on society through technology and techie stuff and science. Yeah, just future stuff. I guess if it's based in the future, I'd term it as science fiction.
Okay.
Fantasy tends to be set in made-up worlds where there's very little technology and way of technology, more magic, and so it's like, maybe it's science v magic. Maybe that's what it is.
Science I like that definition. We'll come back to that because we'll talk about a couple of different things that might have some both elements, and then say,
nothing. Usually stuff doesn't fit in a box, unfortunately.
Right. So, Aaron, what about you? How do you define science fiction, and how do you define fantasy?
Strange enough,
I barely had those words out of my mouth.
Well, no, me, my friend Tom, have had this conversation many a time. It's
good.
an ongoing debate that we've done, and usually science fiction I usually consider it like the possibility of what you can do based on human technology, in the future, and fantasy, like I think, like Peter said, is an alternate reality where you're actually changing the laws of physics a little bit sometimes. Magic is like changing the laws or manipulating laws of physics. That's usually how I see it. So I'd be the guy that would consider Star Wars fantasy because it's not based on human technology.
You're jumping my questions.
But I'm jumping the question. So there you go.
Because I think they debated Star Wars quite a lot on Wednesday, as you might imagine.
I would assume that came up a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so good definitions though. Roberta, how about you? How do you define science fiction and fantasy?
Yeah, well, I guess to make a small distinction from what you're saying is I feel like you can not just define human technology, but sort of place yourself in the story as they go through a scenario that you would find shocking, and they try to make that like they walk it back and talk you through the technology and talk it through so that you feel like yourself are believing that this could happen.
Yeah.
And I think fantasy, you already know everything's crazy. And it's the story that you're watching. And they're good stories. Sometimes they're deep, sometimes they're not, but they're always, the fantasy is always something completely foreign to you.
Yeah.
Or alien. There's a lot of aliens in sci-fi that was considered sci-fi fantasy,
Yeah.
and that was interesting walking that line.
Yeah.
They tried to make it like, well, if there was an alien, what would it be like? And there was a lot of that.
It's hard. It's definitely a very thin line to define. There's so much overlap that even in my head, there's so much like even definitions. I mean, future social commentary could also be science fiction. There's so many other things that are not even that are science fiction that don't really have to do so much with technology, but just like taking social institutions further into
I
the
like the
future.
dystopian futures.
Yeah.
What
Like,
is that?
right,
Is it
like
possible? It's completely alien when you look at it, but at the same time, you can kind of see us going in that direction somewhere.
yeah, Fahrenheit 451 is a classic example
Yes.
of social commentary. Where the technology is not really important, it's the idea that they're burning books and that, yeah. So yeah, it does. It's such a broad definition. You can talk about that all night.
Yeah, I think my definition is probably closer to kind of a little bit of what Pete said initially. I know that I always said when we worked in the bookstore, it's kind of because one of the guys who worked there with me was Stephen Butler. And one of the things we always kind of joked about is science fiction is alien planets and spaceships. Fantasy is dwarves and unicorns, right? And I realize that's a very simplistic kind of definition, but that was kind of the way we always kind of looked at how do you differentiate the two.
I thought Game of Thrones was fantasy.
Yeah,
I would say it's fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not any real place. It's not, but yet they try to make it feel like some kind of medieval style.
Yeah. Well, and I think any kind of entertainment is going to kind of do that to you. You want to, part of what entertainment does is or should do is kind of help get you into the some kind of familiarity there, so that you can kind of associate with something, right, in that fiction. And of course, no, we're not, Lord of the Rings. We're not, none of us are elves or dwarves or halflings or walking, talking trees. And none of us are shoot, what's Frodo?
Hobbit.
Thank you. None of us are hobbits, but that's really who we kind of associate ourselves with. We kind of, when we read that, we're the hobbits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the best fiction, that's some of what the best fiction does. So the comments are going crazy here. Tommy said, Pete, I thought you did your pencils all digitally.
No.
He missed the explanation before. Would you? I know the answer to this, Pete, but would you tell him?
Yeah, I do my roughs digitally, and then I do my pencils on top. So I print out blue line roughs, as you can see, and then I pencil. Sometimes my roughs are nice and neat. Sometimes they are, just get it done and I can start drawing.
Hey, did you see the blue line template that Mike Belcher? I can't remember if I put it in so many different folders. Did you see that? That had the Silverline at the top for the blue line?
That's where John Silverline paper.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You know what? I'll make sure tonight that
I wonder where you got that from.
Yeah, I'll make sure tonight. So Mike Belcher created that because they were talking about it in one of the chats, and Mike Belcher said, I can make that happen.
Yeah, I brought it up, and then Mike said, I'll make it happen.
Yep. And Mike got me the copy, and I spread it all around. I'll make sure that I get you. There you go. Yeah, it looks sweet.
I appreciate getting that after I finished, but
I'm sorry.
we'll use
After
it on the
you've
next
done
one.
the whole book.
I'll start again.
Thanks. Issue 2
that you could put on his
issue 2. Yeah.
Issue 2. We'll use Silverline paper.
So okay, Tommy, is that all clear to you now? Let's see. They're talking to each other. Wubbit says, "Hi, see Michael." See, Michael says, "Hey, Wubba." Wubba, sci-fi has pew pews. Fantasy has clang clang. I like that.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. See, Michael said Star Wars came up, but no Tommy or John, so they kind of missed out. Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
oh, that's right. Tommy wasn't there. Tommy, hey, if you're still listening, you want to pop in tonight, just holler at me. I'll get you a link. You can join in. You can be our Star Wars authority here.
And no one gets a word in
I think I can do
edgewise.
pretty good with Star Wars. We don't need Tommy for that.
Okay,
I know.
okay, sorry. Let's see here. See,
I've got a different category for Star Wars altogether, so we'll have some fun with that.
Yeah. See, Michael says, see, Star Wars has Ewoks, funny dwarves, therefore fantasy. Phil Leon says, I'm half elf, twice removed. Willie Peppers, what the heck, Willie? Willie Pepper says, nice. Hey, Willie, how are you? For those of you who may not know that name, Willie Pepper is a super talented artist. Going way back to the 90s. And I'm not saying anything I wouldn't say to Willie's face. Willie doesn't draw enough. That's the problem with Willie. He's got a lot going on in his life, and he is a super fantastic artist that I have tried to get him to do some stuff for us before in the past. So, Willie, if you're still listening, I love you, man. But yeah, you need to be putting that pencil to the paper. Okay, so C. Michael says, so let's go there, right? Since you guys kind of touched on it a little bit. C. Michael says, Star Wars has Ewoks and funny dwarves, therefore fantasy. What do you think? Fantasy or is it science fiction?
It's neither.
Okay, Peter,
But
go ahead.
I don't get to give my definitions on science fiction.
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry, John.
Go.
John, I'm so sorry. See,
John.
my screen here, right? I told you I was going to make you go last, but my screen here has me and then you and then Pete, Aaron, Pete's drawings, and then Roberta. And when I got to the end of the list, I forgot all about you. So, John, how do you define
I'm so
science fiction
forgettable,
and
I swear.
fantasy?
Well, you're on the fence, man. That's what you get for being on the fence.
That's
You
right,
get punished.
Oh no, but the only reason why I brought it up was because this right here is going to help make the next part of this discussion.
Okay,
go
you need
even
this.
further.
All right, I got you.
Science fiction is got some based in science, hence science fiction. So you got it. So there's tons of technology, things like that. Whatever, it could be like loosely based or it can be heavily based, but it still makes it science fiction. However, fantasy is technically very broad, which I would actually go as far as saying science fiction almost falls under fantasy as a subcategory. Because fantasy is basically, it's all make-believe. So you could actually have make-believe and make it, kind of science fiction-y.
What I will say, you can say that all you want, but that is not how we did it in the bookstore.
That's because you had an old lady back there telling you how to do it.
Oh, no.
Well, you can always tell by the covers too, all the bright, solid colors for the fantasy books,
See, and you're right. I think that's one of the things that stood out for me as a buyer when I was buying novels. I still do some, but not as much as I used to. Is if it had a unicorn on it, I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. But if it had a dude and a big astronauts with a blaster and a spaceship behind him and a planet, I'm like, that's what I'm reading right there. That's the science fiction.
Heavy metal has both science fiction in it and fantasy.
I agree. But Heavy Metal is an anthology magazine, so Heavy Metal is not a science fiction magazine.
It's a good read.
You can even it is a good read. There's even the magazine of science fiction and fantasy, right? I used to read that all the time.
Sci-fi magazine,
Right, yeah, but it's science fiction and fantasy. So I think I reject your idea that science fiction falls up under fantasy.
But it does. It does. It's just it's a subcategory.
There's always subcategories, and then there's sci-fi fact.
Well, see, this goes back to I think that's right, sci-fi fact. This goes back to the idea I think that Tim was saying that they talked about in the class is that it's all called Fantastica, and under Fantastica you've got science fiction, you've got other things as well. I mean, we can talk about superheroes or something on my list that I wanted us to talk about. But for years and years and years, superheroes just fell because you didn't have that many superhero novels published, right? And you didn't find much in that kind of way in the bookstore. So superheroes kind of fell under the broad category of science fiction fantasy. But I would argue today the genre is so popular that it's its own category. It's just if you can read a superhero, you can go on Amazon and find all kinds of superhero books today. I used to buy them like crazy, but my problem was so many of them were so bad.
Yeah.
That's why you have your friends tell you.
Yeah. I have a couple on my bookshelves. I have like 2 rows of superhero novels, and most of them I just found quite randomly, on Amazon. And I'm like, oh, there's a superhero novel. Let me buy that. And some of them are good, but many of them.
That's what happened with Gambit. I never knew that it'd be good until my friend's like, oh my god, it's so good. It looks like anything to me. Well,
you talking about Gambit the X-Men?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
His miniseries was awesome. Lee Weeks killed it.
Yeah, you said got great powers, a good look, and I was like, wow, the story's great.
Yeah, I know you, Roberta. You love the accent. It's that Cajun accent that gets you.
No. Not yet.
All right, so let's circle back around. John, you're gonna argue that Star Wars is fantasy?
Actually, it is both.
So when I put it on the bookshelf, I need to rip it in half and put it.
He's really cozy on that fence, isn't he? He's just got the chair on the fence. He's just hanging out.
I'm real good here. What you gonna do?
I'm real good. I ain't moving.
Well, no, because I mean, the Force is obviously fantasy. Its basis is complete fantasy, kind of like throwing a fireball if you're a warlock,
Yeah.
But then you have the ships and the planets and all that kind of stuff, and that's heavily rooted in science fiction.
Pete, what do you think?
Right. Now listen.
I was drawing. You Americans were arguing. I'm just drawing. What do you think?
Star Wars is a Western.
Interesting.
It's not it's not fantasy. It is fantasy and sci-fi, but it's a Western. It's just good guys, bad guys, shoot them up in space. That's why it's so appealing, because it's really simple.
But there's a little stabby too.
There's a little stabby. Yeah, the lightsabers completely invalidate your claim, Peter. Sorry.
No, you could have swords. You could have swords in the Old West or whatever you want.
Actually, yeah, you can if it's a military Western.
So here's the thing. Here's the problem I have with that definition, though, Pete, is that
we told you, Roland, you can be wrong. It's okay.
So the problem. I think you can take one kind of genre and put it on the other. But when we say Westerns, okay, we're talking, cowboys with cowboy hats and guns. I think you can do a sci-fi Western, right? But I think Star Wars can't. Western fans are not going to, classic Western fans, and when I say Western, I mean the cowboy hats and guns. They're not going to go to the Star Wars because that's not what it is, right?
But yet Mandalorian is.
They're missing out.
They're missing out.
Yeah.
Mandalorian is, however, because there is no stabby.
It's a complete Western. Just watch the Mandalorian. It's just a Western. Even the way it's shot with a big long panoramic. It's classic Western. Sorry, Western fans, go watch it. It's a Western.
The thing is the only way I'd push back is Mandalorian, especially Star Wars, is so influenced. I mean, Mandalorian is heavily influenced by Lone Wolf and Cub. I mean, almost verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
And especially Star Wars, there's a lot of, they always do to the Seven Samurai, which is Seven Samurai and all them developed into Westerns. But I would say it's
one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. And so I just think it's much more based on different forms of genre, like simpler. But I don't like the Western because the Mandalorian is a Western, but it's much more Lone Wolf and Cub. That's what I really see it as.
Yeah.
So
So part of the problem is, and we'll continue on here.
Yeah.
So part of the problem is when we talk about genres. Okay, I think as artists, as creators, we don't like to be put in a this is my place here.
Right.
You're this is what you do. You know, we like the idea that, well, I can do a little bit of everything, right? You talk about you talk to well, I know certainly in school, you know, I see a lot of students are like, you know, I don't want to just be an animation writer, or I don't just want to be a film writer. I want to write a little bit of everything, or I don't want to just write romance. I want to write some of this, and so I totally get that. But yet, when we think of Stephen King is a horror writer, right? And and this is part of what.
It's not totally horror.
What's that?
What's the stand? It's not totally horror.
No,
But I mean,
there's
he
a little bit
writes-
of, there's fantasy in his work too.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. Well,
Yeah.
Firestarter, right? Firestarter. She's got this, you know, this power.
Dark Tower.
But
But I
most
think-
writers, go ahead, Roland. Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I think part of this is necessary because, you know, you can't sell something by saying, you know, Star Wars is a Western, right? People look at it and I'm like, no, that's not a Western. I'm not going to go see that, right? Well, like John Carter, right? If we can debate the qualities of John Carter, but part of, I think, what none of us would argue about, I don't think anyway, was that they didn't know how to market John Carter, right? And so you see all the marketing, people's like, who's John Carter? Why is this dude jumping around on this planet? What the heck, right? And so they didn't know how to market. And I think that this is where the categories of science fiction and fantasy come in, and they're we don't have to like them, but they're kind of necessary, right, in order to kind of sell your thing. So Aaron, what do you think? Star Wars, fantasy or science fiction?
Star Wars to me is fantasy. It always is, because even when they do any of the science fiction, it's based on loose science at best. I mean, they're breaking the laws of physics all the time in that movie, which is fine, you know. So it's just fantasy to me. And I was also going to say the thing about the writers. I mean, a lot of writers and stuff do write in other different genres. They just use different surnames. I mean, Stephen King does that.
Right.
When he wrote Shawshank Redemption, that way the Stephen King name is still associated with horror and not these other things. So it's like writers do that. They just get around about using a different pen name.
Good point.
Yeah.
I have a rebuttal. I have a
actually
rebuttal
know
for
several who write romance, write romance under a pen name.
Right.
Oh, hang on to your thought, John. We're going to go to Roberta and let her answer. Star Wars, fantasy or science fiction?
Fantasy.
Okay.
Only because of the whole idea behind the Force.
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of takes it out of the realm of anything that could ever happen. Plus, the way the ships move, I don't think they really thought that through technology.
Yeah.
I just get a feeling Peter's lost hope for our country. He's just listening to us going like,
no, he's just waiting. He's Peter's got this bomb. He's over there. He's like, I'm gonna let them say their piece, and then I'm gonna come in and destroy
he's gonna
them
drop
again.
it.
Star Wars is science fiction. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Look at eyes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna agree with Pete after John has his rebuttal.
Oh, okay.
All right.
If we're gonna sit there and say that it's fantasy because it completely 100%, you know, the way it out, you know, the laws of physics is impossible, then we're going to have to say that Star Trek is fantasy too, because there's a lot of stuff in it that is not possible based on the laws of physics. Right. And Star Trek is science fiction.
Get a fight out of a lot of people on that one.
So I'm going to latch on to what Pete said. He said Star Wars is science fiction, and I say there's I don't think it's the fantasy in the remotest. Yes, there are fantasy elements. I went to Wikipedia, and I know this is not the place you go to settle arguments, but I'm just bear with me, right? Here's kind of where I wanted to go, and I thought somebody might go. Star Wars is an American epic space opera.
Well,
okay,
it's
it's a space opera, which it falls up under the science fiction category. Space opera doesn't fall under fantasy. Space opera is a kind of science fiction. Star Wars is an epic space opera, is what
I
it
would
is.
agree with that. That is all it is.
Yeah. And we can talk about. I certainly think that I'd have to go back and kind of review it again to see if to examine Pete's Western claims about Star Wars. I think Mandalorian is. I think you're absolutely right about that. I've only seen the first season, but yeah, I think that's absolutely it's a Western in space. Like I said, I'd have to go back and kind of review the movies to see if I kind of agree with that as well. But yeah, I think the Mandalorian is very much that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, the one that I always go back and forth on is the original Tron movie, because Tron's based in a human computer.
Yeah,
and it's a completely fantastical world based around the laws of the computer. So it's a science fiction or fantasy. It's like it's both. That one I would say both.
Yeah. What?
See,
Michael
CJ
said, I said,
Lanning,
okay. What's
he
that?
gave me an idea. Is Flash Gordon science fiction or fantasy?
And the rest of the podcast goes to Brolin. So everyone just be quiet.
Fantasy.
So
it is fantasy.
It's not fantasy. It's science
fiction.
Here we
go.
It's classic science fiction.
Scientific about it.
He gets in a spaceship. He gets in a spaceship and goes into the to fight the merciless.
It's definitely science fiction. Definitely science fiction.
There's a dude flying. He has wings. It's Hawkman.
Yes.
that's fantasy.
All right, I've missed some of these several comments again. I'm not sure exactly where some of them fall in. See, Michael said funny wars, which it's got to be Star Wars. Wubba says it's fantastical sci-fi epic. And then he says Sectars. Y'all remember that? I was in the comic. Sectars was sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
And Tommy says Pete is right. Magic / sci-fi / fantasy / kung fu / western. There is no there that is not a thing.
Oh, he added more. He added more on the next comment.
Did he? Oh yeah, love story / romance, right? And with a bit of comedy for fun and action.
Yeah,
strangely enough, though, I mean, out of the debate whether or not Star Wars is fantasy or science fiction, most of the media claims it as science fiction, don't they? Don't they advertise it as a sci-fi story?
I don't know the answer to that. I would assume the answer is yes, but
I would assume more. Yeah.
You know why they do that?
Because nobody wants
a film.
Guess what?
Yeah.
It's because it's science fiction.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Look at Peter's like they've made an executive decision to settle this argument.
Yeah. You know why they do it? It's because
you know why they do it? Because it's sci-fi.
Wubba said it replaced Clang Clang with Zert Zert. See, Michael said, honestly, Star Wars is space opera. Not really either. The setting, okay, yeah. So he this is, I don't know if he said this before, probably said it before I went to Wiki. Oh, yeah, he said I said it first. The setting is space, therefore we consider it sci-fi, but it really fits into the Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers genre, really aside from sci-fi or fantasy. And I hear what you're saying, but I think that space opera falls up under the science fiction umbrella, right? We have a science fiction.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And I think science fiction, it can be so broad. But see, I remember. You guys tell me if you guys remember these terms at all. I remember at one time we defined the science fiction by hard science fiction and soft science fiction. Do y'all remember that at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I like a bit of hard sci-fi.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So how do you remember those definitions being?
Hard sci-fi is a book primarily about the technology, and it actually gets quite in depth to the point where there might be maths equations and stuff in the book. But, soft sci-fi is the book is based in a sci-fi setting, but it's not really about the tech.
Soft sci-fi would be like Star Trek, right? We've had teleporters.
That's fun.
Yeah. I push a button and you teleport. Well, that's soft sci-fi. We don't have to explain it that it works. It's a teleporter. We know what it is, and you push a button and you teleport. A hard science fiction would be, now what happens with it when we push this button? Your molecules break down and they zap through, and it explains everything. Now, whether it's believable or not, that's one thing, but it gets into the tech. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun.
So, pizza. All right, we're done. Solved. See, Michael, I did not see your comment there about space opera, so I do apologize to you. I do see that you said it first. There is a little timestamp here. Willie Peppers is still with us. Hey, Willie. He says the movie Gravity would be hard sci-fi. Yeah, I think so.
Good.
It's approaching that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What about anybody seen the Netflix series? I can't remember if it says Mars or
yeah, it's almost documentary like.
Yeah, they go to Mars, but what's the it's not called Mars. What's it called? What?
I thought it was called Mars.
No. This was it wasn't called Mars. It was called something else. And it wasn't an actual documentary because it was a story of an astronaut, a woman astronaut who goes up to Mars and leaves her husband.
That
and
was the
child.
first or something like that.
What was it? The first? Maybe something. Yeah, had some kind of weird title.
Yeah, it was something like the first, I think.
Yeah.
It was good, but it was very slow, so I tended to watch other things and forget about it. It was good though.
Eric says no delay. Eric Amundsen says no delay. Roland was just busy talking. LOL. Ha ha ha. Eric. Yeah. Hey, Eric's one of the former roommates we've mentioned before, right?
Is that the long lost one?
No. Eric's. I know where Eric is. All right. So let's see here. Trying to think of something else though. So Gravity, I can't think of what the name of the thing is. Roberta, you saw it though, right?
Yeah, I did.
The Netflix. It was pretty good.
I liked it. The drama was good.
Yeah, drama was very good. No, it wasn't Lost in
No,
Space.
it's not really that fantastical. It's kind of like a personal story.
Yeah.
Lost in Space, that's sci-fi.
Lost in Space is sci-fi.
Peter's just going to be popular as puppet.
I'm just going to name sci-fi things now.
Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon, would it be fantasy or sci-fi?
Altered Carbon is sci-fi.
Yeah, that's sci-fi, I think.
Because it's based on a technology that allows you to transform your consciousness into.
I haven't seen that.
Like Westworld.
The book's really good. Yeah, you should read it. The series is quite good as well. Actually, I enjoyed that.
Cool.
But yeah, definitely sci-fi.
Yeah. Willie Pepper says, "What about Extant? Anybody seen Extant?"
No, I don't think I've seen that.
I think it's on my watch list on Netflix.
Is that Netflix? Okay, I haven't seen that one either.
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, Eric needs to, but Eric's an avid reader. Eric needs to chime in to mention some difficult ones, Eric, that you think we might have a hard time classifying. But I think some of like the classic. When I think of like classic science fiction, I think obviously. Well, okay. So has anyone read any of the Asimov robot novels?
I read a lot of those.
Oh, well, I read iRobot.
Yeah,
the collection. Yeah.
I read recently. I actually just reread the whole series. I mean, those are classified as science fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah. But it's really soft science. I mean, if you read them, I know that recently it's like that's just a murder mystery. It's a murder mystery in space, right? Now I enjoy them quite a bit, but it really is.
The whole story. It's more entertaining, you know.
Yeah.
And strange enough, your question of like soft sci-fi and hard sci-fi, would that attribute to fantasy as well? Like, would you guys contribute?
Yeah,
would you contribute like Game of Thrones to soft sci-fi because there's not as much fantastical elements as others?
I think Game of Thrones is fantasy.
Well, I mean, like soft fantasy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Like soft fantasy, because it doesn't. It's more like politics and not as much as say like Lord of the Rings, where they're like actually fighting. You know, there's dragons in it, but it's not as much. It's a little more subdued. So would that be more like soft fantasy? I'm just trying to think of like using the same terms of soft and hard sci-fi towards fantasy.
It's
how would that?
Lord of the Rings is high fantasy.
Yeah, I would say that.
It's
instead of hard fantasy, high fantasy.
Okay,
fantasy,
so how do we then define high fantasy and low fantasy?
It's funny.
Well, I don't like low fantasy because it makes it sound bad. But high fantasy, I would classify as your typical, stereotypical elves and wizards and magic.
Right.
Okay.
And anything else will just be fantasy. So
so there's no low fantasy. It's just fantasy
Not in
and
my
high
mind.
fantasy.
There might be some
Okay.
people. I'm sure
Yeah,
there are some probably terrible books out there.
Right. I think it would be the
I don't read
idea.
enough fantasy to know. So
I think it would be like you could even say The Witcher would be soft. Well, I don't know, maybe like the TV series. I mean, it's still magical, whatever, but it's not like I'm thinking like the Never-Ending Story. Like Never-Ending Story is like
Yeah.
straight up fantasy. But there's
Yeah.
other stuff that more mimic a medieval world because medieval seems to do it with touches of fantastical elements. So would that be considered soft fantasy? I don't know. I'm just throwing things out.
I don't know.
No, it's just fantasy. It's not soft fantasy.
Okay.
You're sitting there. It's just fantasy.
Willie Pepper says Blade Runner.
Yeah,
Sci-fi.
definitely.
Yeah.
Sci-fi. Yeah, I think sci-fi.
But
This is
that's
fun. Let's
also
just name
like
films and I'll tell you what they are.
I know.
Yeah.
classic
Yeah. Everyone listening, y'all just name films
I'll
and
tell you
books,
what
and
they are.
we'll just ask Pete, right? What are they?
We'll just ask Pete.
Dune.
Yeah.
Is it fantasy or sci-fi?
That's what Eric asked. He says, "What about Dune?"
Yeah, Dune
Dune,
is always, I thought, supposed to be fantasy.
Really? You think
Because
fantasy?
in my mind, my definition of fantasy, those worlds don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh, yeah.
Are
And,
there
you know, that
films
also
like
goes
that?
towards the idea of like the sort of epic quest that I think is more fantasy based.
Yeah.
It's still epic quests and science fiction, but that's still much more of a fantasy trope, or maybe the idea of epic. Because Dune is a very epic
But it
series
goes
in
towards the
nature.
space opera
It's
idea.
space opera, so yeah.
it's
Yeah.
what?
Space opera.
Yeah.
Space opera. Yeah,
Space
I would
opera.
say, but I would say it's more science fiction than fantasy.
I would
Yeah.
probably lean more to science fiction on that. Yeah.
It's 50-50. I always called books sci-fi fantasy. That was my
Well, it is. It's
Really?
SFF, yeah.
category.
Yeah,
Sci-fi
yeah.
fantasy. I had sci-fi fact, sci-fi fiction, sci-fi fantasy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think
What-
Dune is more fantasy than sci-fi.
Why? Because of the
I think it
worms?
leans more.
Because of the
Well,
worms.
if you go in and not, if you go in just looking at it, just completely not knowing anything about the books or anything
Okay.
like that, you just see the movies, you're going to look at it and think it's fantasy.
Yeah.
So what
know why
about it?
I know.
Why? What about it makes you say fantasy?
Because it looks
Big worms?
like it looks
No
it
worms.
looks very made up and
They all look made up. Blade Runner looks made up.
Got to break it to you. Star Wars isn't real.
I know Star Wars isn't real, Peter, but I'm talking about in the terms of like it doesn't seem there doesn't really seem like there's this whole like ruling like science-y aspect to it.
I think Pete must have worked out before the stream.
No, why? It's because
He he had a couple of bangers before he got on.
Yeah.
it's because it's a really well written book.
What, Dune?
Really
yeah.
well.
That's why it's
Yeah,
science
yeah.
fiction. Now, if it was
No,
badly
that's why-
written, it would be
that's why-
fantasy.
That's why it
I
belongs
said if
the
you
edge.
go on and haven't read the books, and you actually, if you're going like one of the people that go and watch
Dune
the
is a
movie
great
that
book.
have never read a book, and you go to watch the movie because you think it looks cool, they're gonna think it's more of a fantasy than it is gonna be a science fiction.
Yeah, but
I don't
by
know
the
that I-
time you get to God Emperor or whatever,
Yeah, see, I don't
And
know
that's
that
part
I-
of the reason why it'd be considered
technology,
fantasy.
politics and whatever in it.
What
Yeah, see,
about like? I'm
And
sorry,
I don't know. I
what
agree
about
with that because you've got all the alien technology that is, they got to move the spice and I forget the teleporter people. It's been a while since I read it. The teleporter race that transports the spice back and forth. Right. All that is technologically based.
Well, strange enough, I was thinking,
Yeah, that's fair.
what about like Transformers, like the genre Transformers? See, I consider that more. Now that's a hard one for you because that straddles fantasy. But could you make transforming robots? Yeah, they actually have transforming like cars
But
and
they're
robots. They're
aliens,
not
yeah.
sentient, but they have made cars that can like transform or stand up. So it's based on
But they are
technology.
aliens.
I
What?
would say, Pete, what is it? Transformers.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, I would
That's
say
sci-fi.
I would go sci-fi with that too. That would
Yeah.
be me.
Yeah.
Only because it's tech based, isn't it? It's based
I think
on-
that is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Even though they got like
It
the
feels like the real
Allspark or
world,
the
so yeah.
Matrix and all that stuff, it's still very loosely based on technology.
I mean, all sci-fi ultimately is fantasy because it's fantastical and it's
Right.
made up.
Right.
Here's a good one right here. Okay, because
Sci-fi.
technically you could say
He's gonna
technically you could say it's kind of like a suit-ish kind of, but technically you could kind of almost look at it like armor. Gundam wing.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
I would say
There's a lot of clang in it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'd say straight up fantasy. I'm not fantasy sci-fi. That would be sci-fi to me.
You know,
Like-
Willie has a good. Willie Peppers has a comment here. He has a good comment here. He goes, "I think that the subtle delineations only have merit to those of us who are really into it. To the
Yeah.
general public, it's pretty cut and dried. Star Wars is science fiction. Lord of the Rings is fantasy."
Right.
And I would tend to agree with that. Is that the general public, they're kind of like, yeah, there's spaceships, that's science fiction. Yeah, there's elves, that's fantasy. But we can kind of debate, which is kind of why this is so fun for us, right? Because we are very much into it, so we can talk about all the nuances of each of the things. Tommy says, "What about Herbie the Love Bug?"
I don't know what that is.
Wait! You don't know what it is, or you don't know how to classify it?
I don't know what it is.
No, get out of here! You don't know what that is, Pete? Oh,
I'm gonna hazard a guess and say it's sci-fi.
yeah, I would say it's sci-fi. Yeah. Aaron and Roberta, John, y'all know Herbie, don't you?
Yeah, Herbie the Love Bug. Yeah.
I know the car Herbie.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you said Love Bug. I was like, what's that?
Well, the original movie title back in the 70s or something like that was Herbie the Love Bug.
Yeah.
Sure.
Did they ever say how it was self-aware, or I remember it just did things. They never explained why. It's just
it just did things. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Tommy says it was a magic car.
It was.
So it's fantasy.
Had ideas.
Yeah. Willie Pepper says he's got a couple other titles here. He says The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
Yeah.
The Matrix.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi. And then he says Herbie is a dumbed down bumblebee.
It is. It's a bumblebee that doesn't transform.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's think about some other classics. What's that? Which one?
Tron, I said.
What?
Remember Tron?
Tron. Yeah.
That's Tron. Tron, I would say
Artificial
science.
intelligence, so sci-fi kind of.
Yeah, I'd have to. That's the only one I'm going to straddle the line between fantasy.
Yeah,
and
Tron
sci-fi.
the limit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, Tron. I saw the movie a long time ago. I played the game. I don't remember the fantasy elements of it.
Well, the fantasy, just the idea that there's a complete computer world that they made up inside the computer,
people inside of the,
or like programs. And
that's tech.
Yeah,
that's tech.
That's why I say probably more sci-fi.
Yeah, Pete, what is it?
Sci-fi.
There you go.
He's got the final say on everything.
Really very simple.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, Philion says trying to sci-fi the inner workings of a computer. Yeah. Willie Pepper says Attack on Titan. What do you guys think? Any seen Attack on Titan?
I've seen some of it. I'm gonna say more fantasy. I didn't see the whole thing. When I found out what the kind of like why they were, I found out some stuff later on about the show. I'm like, no, that was stupid, so I didn't watch it.
See,
I do that.
I've only seen the first season. I agree with your comment, but I don't know why, and that's kind of why I couldn't watch anymore. I'm like, why are these big naked naked people eating people? Didn't make any sense. There was no explanation.
I was waiting for, and when somebody finally told me the reason why, and I don't know. I found that they only got a sentence like something like, spoiler for anyone watching this, I don't know if this is accurate, but I heard like, oh, they made a deal with the devil. I'm like, okay, well, that's stupid. That was like, I don't know if that's accurate. It could be, but when I heard that, I'm like, okay, I don't want to watch it. But that's happened to me before. I mean, maybe I'm completely wrong. I just heard that somewhere.
What John, Pete, Roberta, y'all agree? Disagree?
Yeah.
Don't know what it is. Sorry.
You haven't really missed a whole lot.
I've only seen like a couple of episodes. I'm not really big into it to really be able to.
You know, The only reason there was a couple of years ago, I kept having month after month after month of my students saying Attack on Titan, Attack on Titan, Attack on Titan, and it's one of those things where you're like, okay, if I've got, this is like the third month my students are telling me I should watch Attack on Titan.
Check it out, yeah.
And so I will tell you this, I fell asleep in the first episode about 3 times before I could get through it.
That good, huh?
But I'm like, I am determined. They're talking about it. I've got to make it through it, right? And I got to the end of the first season, and I will confess that the action picked up around the 5th or 6th episode, something like that. Those first few episodes are just total snoozers, though.
It took me a while to get through it too.
Yeah. But once you get around the, like I said, I don't remember exactly. The action got to be pretty interesting. Still, though, at the end of the first season, I'm like, wait a minute, why is all this stuff going on? Why do I care about any of this stuff? And I'm like, So and then someone said season 2 is out. I'm like, yeah, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete. Essentially, it's the Attack on Titan is there's a big civilization is all living behind this one walled area.
Sci-fi.
And I agree, sci-fi. Yeah, it is sci-fi. But out on the outskirts of the walls are these big naked monsters.
Oh, cool.
Big naked giants. And if the people get out in there and they get caught by the big naked giants just eat them.
Yeah.
And otherwise the big naked giants just stand still like thunder-headed zombies that I can't remember if it was noise. It might have been noise.
Or something, yeah.
Something, yeah. But they would always try to sneak around them. But if they caught if it caught their attention, then they would catch them and eat them. And it's like, why? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. Yeah. I mean, maybe like I said, there's a season 2. Maybe I heard they explained it, but I was like I got halfway through and I'm like, I don't really care about the explanation.
Yeah, that was kind of me.
I'm thinking since Curtis isn't here, Akira.
Yeah.
Bring Akira up.
That's easy. That's an easy one.
That's science fiction to me.
Sci-fi, yeah.
Yeah, easy.
That's a classic sci-fi.
Yeah. Phil Leon says, Attack on Titan is sci-fi. Attack on Titan is fantasy. There's a couple of live action movies of Attack too. I did not know that.
Yeah, the Japanese ones, yeah.
I've
never seen it, but I've seen ads for them and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what else. What other question? Legend, of course.
Legend is
It's
movie
fantasy.
Fantasy.
That's almost like classical fantasy.
Yeah.
Same thing with The Last Unicorn.
Yeah.
With
almost
the
like
Last Unicorn,
yeah, if you're ripping not ripping or fairy tales, because Legend was based on literally like fairy tales come to life. Even with like the sparkles in the air. I mean, that was like straight up. So yeah, that was fantasy.
All right, so let's think about some of our classic. What about Frankenstein?
That is science fiction.
Yeah, I would say that's science fiction.
You can make the argument that it's neither. It's horror.
You could, yeah.
It is.
Well, okay.
It's funny. It's more attributed to the horror franchise. I would say John's right about that.
Well, if you do any study about the origins of science fiction, Frankenstein is often one of the first books mentioned as original science fiction stories.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, he uses science to basically take cadavers and reanimate a man, right?
Because I don't think it was ever made to be horror. I wonder why it got kind of stuck in the horror genre. I wonder if that's because of Hollywood.
Probably Hollywood, I would guess. Yeah.
Because when you really think about it, it does seem more science fiction than horror, even though it is very much a horror story as far as the general populace is concerned.
Yeah, Phil Leon says the original story of Frankenstein is considered sci-fi for sure. Yeah, I think if you ever study like the history of science fiction, that is very much one of the very first nominal works.
Right.
You mentioned with Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and stuff like that. So what about some of the other classics? What about Creature from the Black Lagoon?
Mm-hmm.
Is that sci-fi fantasy?
I would say more fantasy, but I mean,
it's fantasy to me, even though it's classic horror. Does definitely feel fantasy.
So here's a question then, I guess.
Godzilla, so you could say.
What's that? Godzilla?
Like Godzilla.
Okay, Godzilla's a good one. What is Godzilla?
I would think that's more straight up science fiction just because he was supposed to be made by scientific means. But then I guess if you watch further into it, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it goes more into fantasy. I don't know. But that feels science fiction to me. Now maybe I should have feeling. We could always ask Peter whether my judgment is correct.
Peter will tell you. What is it?
Godzilla.
Did we stump the penciler?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
I'm just flat. It's so boring, but
so is it? So what time is it? 10. Roberta, you want to? Yeah. All right. Brett, if you can hear me, pop Roberta up. So I guess here's a question: Could something like Godzilla could it start off one way and okay? So Brad Dumpty said Godzilla is definitely sci-fi. Phil Leon says Godzilla sci-fi. It's an atomic mutation. So here's a question for you: Could something like Godzilla start off as science fiction and then maybe ultimately become something else?
I can see that.
Have you ever read The High Crusade by Paul Anderson?
I don't read.
No, you don't read. What
the heck? I don't read good. I don't read good.
Pete says,
I don't read
forgot
any
I was talking to Americans.
Yeah.
No, I have not read any. You know what? I have not read any Paul Anderson. Believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
I know. You know, part of what stopped me from that is the series. You know, there's so many in the series that I'm like, no.
Well, yeah.
Seems a little offended there. He got it.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
You should read the High Crusade. It's quite a short novel, but it starts off these knights riding back from a crusade, and then some aliens land and whisk them away, and it becomes a war with these knights in space and these aliens.
Really?
They take over the ship. Yeah. And
that sounds kind of cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah, it sounds kind of cool.
Medieval England, and it ends up in space. So it's so they can go both ways. That's what I'm saying. Basically.
Yeah. I know. I just read. Oh shoot. Well, not Paul. Heinlein's Citizen of the Galaxy. You know, starts off with the little kid, which when you read it feels more fantastical, but then he gets adopted by this royal family who owns spaceships, and he becomes a spaceship commander, and then it very much becomes science fiction. What was the name of that book I just read? It starts off it's I see the cover. I can't remember of it now. Anyway. All right, back time says maybe not Godzilla, but a solid sci-fi Portal story could. Okay, but all right. So, mad scientist creates gateway to altered dimension that is inhabited by elves, dwarves, etc. So here's the question. All right, so that
Stargate?
Well, I was going to say. So is that a fantasy story, or is that a science fiction story with fantastical elements? All right, so if you've got a portal that's all techie and science fiction, right, and you portal or you transport into a fantasy world, is the story a fantasy story or is it a science fiction story?
Well, it depends on how they handle it. Like, remember Sphere?
Yeah.
We saw Sphere. It turned like they didn't know if it was ever all in her mind. I don't know. It's
No, I'm trying to remember. I saw that movie a while ago. Yeah.
Sphere?
Yeah, it was a movie called Sphere, and it was something they found it on the bottom of the ocean, but it was like doing stuff to them, and they couldn't figure out if it was real or hallucinogen. At least that's what I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember one called The Abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it came out about the same time, actually.
Okay, I don't remember The Sphere.
We can go in The Abyss.
John, you've been quiet here.
No, I'm sitting here thinking because Stargate's basically portal into fantasy world, and but there's some sciencey tech stuff to it, but then there's not. So it's kind of it's a beard stroker.
Yeah,
Well,
the
see-
format of the show allows you to explore lots of different worlds and different settings, so they can do the fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I remember them often going to worlds where it's basically a medieval world, isn't it?
Would you consider
But,
Doctor Who?
but I would
fantasy?
argue, though, that at its core, it's a science fiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
It's made possible through the technology of.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I can see your definition of Doctor Who being sci-fi. That is
Sci-fi,
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
John,
Yeah.
Brad says, "Ha, beard stroker. That's great imagery."
Yeah, I know.
For those of you who might not recognize the name, Brad Tomte, Brad is the one who's designed most of our logo, many of our logos. I wouldn't say most, I'd have to count them up. Many of our logos, and he's actually rejoining the rank. Brad is a classical, that's a traditional letterer. And when I first started doing this stuff again about 3 or 4 years ago, I asked Brad, I said, "So you interested in lettering?" He goes, "Nah, I don't think I'm gonna do that." But here recently, he's like, I want to get back into lettering. So Brad is lettering. He's going to finish up Kalis, so he'll be lettering Kalis 3 and 4. So yeah, it's good to have. If you look in the bunch of the older Silverline books, you'll see Brad's name scattered throughout there. Did a bunch of work. So. Brad also does, Brad, I'll plug you here, also does a podcast with Bill Willingham. Some of you guys may know Bill Willingham from his long run on Fables.
I was going to say Fables, Bill Willingham.
Yep. Of course, I affectionately remember Bill from the Elementals.
That's what I remember him from.
Which is one of my the very first independent comic books that I discovered and fell in love with. And I was very fortunate to get to write a miniseries for the Elementals when I was first getting in comics. Unfortunately, it was kind of at the tail end of Kamiko, and there was a lot of nasty stuff going on with Kamiko at the time. So I didn't know all of the stuff. It's one of those that is you look back on and you're like, yeah, okay, well, I did it. It is what it is. And if I'd known then what I know now. But it was a lot of fun. We did a Vortex miniseries. So me and Stephen Butler.
Oh, okay, yeah. She was the wind elemental.
No, he. But yes.
He?
Yeah.
I thought it was she. Okay.
No. Vortex was a dude. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, you're right. He was a wind elemental. All right. So what other classics can we kind of debate? We kind of already talked about Star Trek a little bit. Star Wars, the big ones. What other kind of classical? You guys, online, help me out here. Willie mentioned the Invisible Man and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. What about those? Willie Peppers. He said, yeah. Yeah.
Invisible Man, sci-fi.
I would say sci-fi.
Dr.
Great book, by the way.
Yeah, I guess because Jekyll and Hyde, it's science,
fantasy,
isn't it? Science.
I would say it's science. It's the potion.
I would say
Hyde for the potion. Yeah. Science.
But I would say fantasy with that little sciencey stuff is kind of helping the story.
Would you call that fantasy science then?
No, I would just call it fantasy. Because in all honesty, you're not going through. There's more about the. I mean, he's changing from one to the other, which is you can almost
through science.
Well. But that's the only element in this thing that is science. It's like that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is fantasy.
Well, no, everything else is li-fi, right? It's just straight. By the way, li-fi, it's my affectionate term, or not so affectionate, for literary fiction. Everything else is just straight fiction. Willie Pepper says, "I'm pulling my hair out here." Yeah, I mean everything else now it's been a long time since I've read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but everything else is just it's just straight fiction. There are no other fantastical elements in that story other than, the potion that he creates, and it changes him.
Was it a potion?
Yeah.
Was that okay?
Yeah. And I think this is where things like Hank Pym gets. I think you look at that. That's got to be the inspiration for Hank Pym, because he takes a potion, causes him to shrink and then to grow. And of course, Stanley has said before that the Hulk very much inspired by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that easily.
Yeah. So the Hulk is science fiction then.
I would say the Hulk probably edged a little more towards science fiction than fantasy.
But the Immortal Hulk that just came out was more horror.
So all right, so let's talk about this briefly then. Where does horror fit into this whole picture? Is this something completely different altogether, or is there any room under the science fiction and fantasy umbrellas for horror?
Yes, because Event Horizon is a sci-fi horror.
Yes.
Have you seen Event Horizon?
Yeah.
I have not.
It's
No.
brilliant.
Is it?
Check it out. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's okay.
Oh, no,
Sam Neill, what's his name? Gone crazy. It's brilliant. That's the only Latin I know.
Yeah, I would say horror would be. I don't know. Is horror some say? Because I mean, this sci-fi stuff. Clive Barker mixes sci-fi and horror a lot. But there's definitely fantasy elements. I mean, I would consider like Hellraiser more fantasy.
Yeah.
Because
you're pausing, and so I'm playing you.
I was just thinking. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I guess if Curtis is not here, I've got to interrupt you, right?
That's right. That's right. You got to take over Curtis's job.
So I think when Pete said earlier about Star Wars being a Western, I think that's a very valid thing, because one of the Brad Tomty just said it's easy to have sci-fi horror or fantasy horror, and I think it's pretty easy to I think it's pretty easy to take two broad spectrum genres and combine them together, which is what you would do if you wanted to say sci-fi Western.
Right.
Brad says Dracula is fantasy horror. Aliens is sci-fi horror. Willie Peppers had mentioned Aliens earlier. I'd say Aliens is sci-fi horror. Wubba says so is Predator, and then he says Clive Barker mixes a lot of romance, honesty.
Yeah.
So
I like sci-fi horror. I mean, not sci-fi, but fantasy horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Twilight.
I definitely.
Twilight.
It scares the heck out of me.
I would say it's a fantasy B movie, but
Did you guys see that meme that was going around that was like, "This is how Twilight should have ended," and it showed like the vampire and the lady sitting on the rock, like
I post it every time I see it.
Behind them was Blade. So like walking and behind them was Blade. It's like that was awesome. That's how it should have ended.
No, I didn't see that.
That's hilarious. I'm like, yeah, I would have watched it if it just would have ended like that.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, I think I think that's when you can take two elements like that. Oh, I recognize that page, Berta. Wow,
yes,
cool.
you do. I backed up so you could see it. I'm just doing trash.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I saw the when I first saw the trash, I'm like, I don't know what that is, and then I saw the cat. I'm like, okay, I know what page that is.
Yeah.
There we go. New Orleans is coming in.
Yes.
It's got a lot more to go, but hey,
gorgeous.
Fun part,
Yeah.
So I'm starting little with the kitty.
I lost my train of thought there. I got distracted by the artwork.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's okay. So I'm thinking about trying to think about what about some of these games that I don't play a whole lot of the first person console games. I know we talked about games already, but any of those? John, you got a big smile on your face, like you're itching to say something.
Oh no, I just saw where Robin said, "Hey, no knocking the sparkling emo vampires," and I'll knock them all I want.
Yeah, I know.
He says Twilight was epic.
It was epic.
Hey, the baseball game scene. Now that was fun.
I'm still one of these guys that every time they try to make vampires without fangs, I just find that such a cop out. I'm like, look, they look human enough. Just give them some fangs. Just we make them sparkle. Yeah,
Well,
that's stupid.
Don't make them so wussy.
Isn't the okay? So when they don't have fangs, isn't the idea that when they actually go to chomp, the fangs grow out, kind of extend?
They never the ones that even like Twilight, for example, they never say that. Because I'm like, look, if you don't have fangs and you're just using like your chompers, you're gonna be gnawing on that for a while. Guys, get the hell out of here. What do you know?
I need some blood.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things like, fangs are really cheaply, easily made. Just pop them in. Just,
I had a set when I was young.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like, how hard is this? They don't have to look good. But
Wubba said, if you believe Twilight was epic, he has oceanfront property in Arizona to sell.
Oh, whatever. He's watching Twilight right now. He's like, Twilight, click.
Oh shoot, what's that actress's name? Kristen.
We don't remember because it doesn't matter.
Well, what was funny is when Twilight came out, my mother grew up in the Forks, Washington. And when I told her like her town is famous because of this novel, she's like, "What?" And they made this documentary about Forks, Washington, and the novel, and I had bought it for her just so she can watch it, and she knows everything, and so she's watching this. She's like, "How did this happen? Because I've been to Forks. It's a street." And it's like, I mean, it's so that's why in the movies when they go like, "There's a university in Forks," I'm like, no.
Yeah,
all this like, no. And so,
yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it was kind of funny. So I knew somebody who grew up in that town.
I think they do a lot of places like that. Yeah, Kristen. Brad Thompson said Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart. Yeah, that was her name.
Yeah, I couldn't think of her name. That's the reason that Wubba watching Twilight, because Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
Because she's got such a wide range of emotions.
She does.
So Pete's read Dune. I read Dune. Who else has read Dune?
I read
Roberta?
Dune. I did.
Yeah.
Been forever and a day.
I was
for a long time.
13 though.
Yeah. I did not read. I never.
I never got a chance to reread them. I meant to, and especially now that they're coming out again.
Yeah, I reread it 6, 7, 8 years ago. Here's the question for you: did you ever read any of the ones that followed it, though?
Yeah.
Roberta said, "Yeah." Pete says, "No."
Messiah and some others.
Okay. Yeah. See, yeah, there was several. I've only ever read the first one, and I think it was a great read. I tried to get both of my kids to read it, and they're like, I don't know. Now, Brett, can everyone else hear you, or is it just me? Huh?
We can hear him. Yeah, we can.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if y'all could hear him or not. Yeah, the movie wasn't that terrible.
I like the movie.
The new one. It's gonna change his mind. The new one's gonna change his mind.
Yeah, that does it good.
Yeah, they're working on the new one.
Yeah, look up the trailer, Brett.
So all right. So there's actually the one by the Northern was it Northern Express? What that first actor? Because there's two movies. The first one was decent. The second one was not very good. The first one is the one that had Sting in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made another Dune movie. A sequel to that?
They made it. No, not a sequel.
They TV series.
Oh, the TV series.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I remember there was a TV series. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I was thinking there was a second movie, but yeah, the first one wasn't too bad. I mean, the obviously the technology the visuals for the film wasn't. I mean, the giant worms. I mean, how are you going to do that? In 1980 or whatever it was, 86. Well, I don't remember exactly when it was. Wubba says my favorite vampires are written by Anne Rice. Yeah.
Yes, me too. When I was younger.
Yeah.
She was the one that always. I never liked Anne Rice. I was always into like the Lost Boy vampires. Then Anne Rice came out, and I'm like, what happened to them? They were these cool heavy metal rocker dudes, and now they're
wimpy for girls. That was
You
their
need to
plot
read.
behind it, I'm sure.
Read them, Aaron. Read them, because Lestat is very much.
Yeah, I know the stories and stuff. I don't know. It's just my personal opinion.
We used to sell buttloads of those books. Now, keep in mind, this was in Mississippi, and so we're not that far removed from New Orleans. But we used to sell buttloads of those books, the Lestat books, and when I was in the bookstore.
I think my favorite Anne Rice book in the Vampire Chronicles is Midnight the Devil.
I admittedly I've not read any of them.
I think my favorite vampire story was it was a video game series called the Legacy of Kain series. I absolutely loved that series. That was probably the best my favorite interpretation of vampires.
All right. So have any of you seen the movie? Now I know that there's a series on now, and I haven't seen any of it.
Right.
But what we do in the shadows?
Oh yeah, I love that series.
And I've only seen the movie. But that, oh my gosh, my friend Eric, my former roommate Eric, is the one who told me that you should go watch it, and so because he recommended, I'm like, okay, yeah, if Eric recommends it can't be too bad, right? So I went and I first started, and I'm like, oh, what am I watching now? And then I just started laughing, and I couldn't stop laughing the rest of the way through. It was
I can't
hilarious.
get into it.
It was hilarious. You gotta. I think you have to. You got to turn your brain on, not expecting so much vampires as expecting humor. And it was just
but I was going through like the first couple episodes, and I'm watching it because it's supposed to be funny.
Watch the movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the series.
Yeah, I
watched the first couple of episodes, and I'm like, I thought they said this was funny.
It is hilarious.
This is lame.
No.
So, Peter, you talking about the series or the movie?
Or both. But the series is really good, yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen any of the series, but I did enjoy the movie quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the series. The series is lame. I'm like, I'm not going to go and watch. They're like, well, give it a few more episodes. I'm like, I gave Walking Dead 5 episodes, and I still couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I couldn't get.
Why am I going to do this with something else?
Phil Leon says Children of Dune was the Dune miniseries.
Okay.
Yeah, Willie Peppers, you guys are really getting my creative juices going again. I definitely have to get back to the drawing table. Would really love to join in with you guys. Willie, the invitation is always open to you, sir. So one of the things I didn't mention about Willie. Willie actually drew a 4-page cat and mouse way back in the 90s when we were getting ready to revisit it again at Malibu. It didn't happen, obviously, the relaunch or anything like that, but I had talked to Willie several times over the years about drawing cat and mouse, and this goes back to the 90s and that kind of thing. Willie, absolutely, man, you need to be drawing, and so everybody here say the same thing. Willie needs to be drawing.
Oh yeah.
Willie needs to be drawing. There you go.
I'll show you guys some of his artwork. You're gonna like it if you haven't seen any of his stuff. Jeff Whiting inked that the 4 pages for Cat and Mouse. We're actually gonna use it in the omnibus that I'm working on. So go ahead, John.
I was actually going to say this: if you draw and you have stopped drawing, why start drawing again? Draw more.
Yeah. Well, if you my thing has always been, if you love it, you need to continue to do it. If you love it, you need to make it happen. And that's, for me personally, this is one of the things that I like about Silverline is like, this is that's part of my pitch to all you guys is like, we'll make it happen. That's the thing that we can do with print on demand these days. We can make it happen. It is so, making comic books and I don't, when I'm about to say this, I know a couple of you artists are going to go say, what? No, making comic books is easier today than it was 20 years ago when I tried Silverline 2.0. And I don't mean the drawing and the inking and I don't mean all that. That's still work. But I mean, if you've got something finished, it is so much easier to bring that to life today than it was 20 years ago. So which is why I go back to saying, man, if you want to do comics, if you love to do comics, I echo what John says. Don't let anything stop you. You need to put your butt in the chair and get to doing it. So yeah, Willie. So Willie, just so you know, this is the first time I've seen you pop up here. Yeah, Wubba said Willie did some good stuff on Protectors and X Mutants. Yeah, man, Wubba, dead gum. Good memory. Yeah. He briefly forgot about that, but you're absolutely all right, Wubba. So Willie, we're generally here. We do this generally every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Also every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. we have the Wednesday Silverline Wednesday Whammers. Except for the next couple of weeks because we're participating in Comic Conway on Saturdays. We got a 4-hour block on stuff on Saturdays. So keep your eyes posted on that, Willie, as well. Wubba said, Poppy Z. Bright, New Orleans native, wrote some amazing vampires, and so does Nancy Collins. Yeah, Nancy Collins also does. Nancy Collins is kind of a acquainted friend. Kind of a business acquaintance / friend, but that's because she's from Louisiana, and I used to see her at a lot of the local shows there. We'd run into each other. I like Nancy. I think she's up in the Atlanta area now. I just saw her. She was at Daytona, I think, 2 years ago, and we got a chance to chat a little bit. But yeah, I think Nancy also does some comics. I think she did Red Sonja here recently. Somebody confirmed me. I don't read a whole lot of mainstream comics these days, so
I know Drew Moss is doing Red Sonja and Vampirella.
Okay. Well, I think this goes back a couple of years, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't read a lot of mainstream. I don't think I read any mainstream comics.
I don't really buy Marvel and DC much these days.
Unless I go to the library, and then I'll check something out from the library if there's like a book.
Okay.
I do that.
I will say my exception is the classics. If I'll say, they've collected, Jack Kirby's Fantastic Fours. Okay. I'm interested in that. Wubba said, yeah, Willie did some amazing work on Caliber's Hero line. Yeah. So yeah, Willie's got a good body of work, and like I said, he needs to be drawing. All right. So any other science fiction fantasy thing? What do you think? Is one better than the other? Okay. We've talked about our preferences, right? Now my question is one better than the other?
No.
That would be really hard to answer. I'm going to join John on the fence with this one.
It's comfortable up here.
It is comfortable, yeah.
Both are good.
Can I say I like science fiction better, but I don't think there's enough talent or interesting stories in fantasy at all?
Yeah. I think that's fair. Well, and I think I think like any genre, any medium, you're going to have good and bad in it. My biggest problem with I don't read a whole lot of fantasy. I'm just not drawn to it. From kind of my perspective, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it's like Lord of the Rings came out, and now everybody's trying to one up Lord of the Rings. Everybody's trying to be Lord of the Rings. And I'm not sure that's that's where I did read a pretty good fantasy book here not too long ago. Was the about a young wizard going to school. It wasn't Harry Potter. Young wizard went to school.
Fowl.
What's that?
Artemis Fowl?
No, not Artemis Fowl. I do know that one. In The Name of the Wind. The Name of the Wind.
Oh, that's Patrick Rothfuss.
Rothfuss, that's it. Thank you.
He is amazing.
Yeah,
I love that book.
Yeah, very good book. Did you read the second one?
Yes.
Yeah, second one's not as good. Still good, but not as good as the first.
You should read fantasy novels. Joe Abercrombie. Have you read Joe Abercrombie?
No, I've got a list over here going.
Yeah, it's the First Law trilogy. His stuff is brutal. he really gets into the blood and the guts
Oh yeah.
of
Yeah.
fantasy. Yeah, he's my favorite. I've got to be my favorite author.
Cool.
If you like high fantasy, Stephen Erickson and Ian C. Esselmont.
Does he write alternate history as well?
I think he does actually.
I think I just purchased an alternate history that he wrote. Yeah. I'm a big fan of alternate history, which was one of the things I was going to bring up. Where does this fall in science fiction fantasy?
I got a really good.
Yeah.
Sherilyn Kenyon's stuff is pretty fantasy, but it's really, really, really good.
I don't know that name.
You might as well make a note on that, because it's basically taking all the pantheons and working it together in like a shared universe. The author's name is Sherilyn Kenyon.
So what about it? Where does something like alternate? Any of you read much alternate history at all?
Only like Man in a High Castle.
Yep, that's a good one. Pete, you were talking about this this story earlier that they went into aliens, the medieval, and then they went into aliens.
The High Crusade.
Yeah. So Harry Turtledove wrote a series about set in World War II, in which aliens invaded during World War II. I can't remember the title of the series, but essentially during the middle of World War II, here these aliens come down. So the Earth has to stop fighting the Nazis, and they have to team up together to fight the aliens. Pretty good book, pretty good series, I should say. But what is that? I mean, it's classified as alternate history, but what is that?
I put alternate history in the sci-fi bracket.
Yeah. I would think more of that.
Yeah. So what about steampunk?
Oh.
Because
I think once, strange enough, like steampunk, but I was thinking like alternate history would be sci-fi, because like I said, would you consider like King Arthur alternate history? Like King Arthur's fantasy.
Yeah.
It's legend, but once you add fantasy, then it's immediately a fantasy story instead of an alternate history. So I would agree with Peter. That is definitely sci-fi, at least to people.
Yeah.
There. And that's the only time I'm agreeing with Peter tonight. Everything else no.
Wubba said Nancy Collins is in Georgia now. Have her on the book face. Yeah, I think she's up in the Atlanta area. I'm not 100% sure about that. Willie Pepper says subjective when I said is one better than the other. And then Wubba said, no, it's opinion D always. All points otherwise are null. Fence writers win this part of the debate. Willie says, my all-time favorite is the Chronicles of Amber.
Oh, yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, it's a classic one too.
Is that Roger Zelazny?
I think so.
I'm gonna have to Google that now. I've got it upstairs somewhere.
I think it is. Of course, the first thing Chronicles of Narnia comes up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Roger Zelazny, yeah.
Chronicles of Riddick, is it fantasy or is it something?
That's fact.
That's fact. Yeah,
it's fact.
That's
all
fact.
right.
Vin Diesel did all those things.
Yeah, right. All right. My clock says 10:49. I guess we should call it a night. It was a fun discussion tonight, guys and gals.
Hopefully, America's learned a lot tonight.
I know.
Well, I think that the answer, if we don't know what it is, what's the answer, Pete?
Well, it's probably going to be sci-fi.
Sci-fi. That's right. So, So fun discussion. I think sci-fi and fantasy. I think part of the reason that we tend to be so into that is that it's very much at home in comics.
Yeah.
It's very easy. One of the things that as you guys probably know, one of the things we brag about in comics, especially if you ever talk to any movie people, is we've got an unlimited special effects budget. When we're drawing spaceships, it's basically what Pete, what can you think of? Well, there's your spaceship, and you don't have to worry about CGI or anything like that, or making it look real, because it's in a comic. So so I think fantasy and sci-fi are just kind of natural, good fits with comics. So any final thoughts, guys?
Read.
I love that. Yeah. Read books, read comics, read. So here's
inspires your imagination.
Say again.
It inspires your imagination.
It does. It absolutely does. I find that to be absolutely true. I'm one of these people. When someone says they're bored, my first question is usually, really? How can you be bored? Because there's so much stuff out there to occupy your time. I have 8 bookshelves in my living room. That some of the stuff I'd like to read again. About 10% of it I'd like to read the first time. Anyone who buys books, you've got that 10 to 15% of your books that you haven't read. You're gonna read, right? So my thing is, I can never be bored. I have so much stuff, in there that if I run out of something to do, which is never, I can read. But I do find that if I ever get the feeling, my brain drain a little bit, I just pull me out a Isaac Asimov book and start reading. Isaac Asimov is probably one of my all-time favorites.
Like Arthur C. Clarke.
Say again.
I like Arthur C. Clarke.
Arthur C. Clarke, yep.
All-time favorites.
Yeah, I love a lot of the classic science fiction. If you look on my shelves, you'll see anthologies, from the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. A lot of that classic sci-fi. Big fan of that. Willie Pepper says the last thing is my favorite writer, and also Michael Moorcock and Larry Niven for science fiction. Good writers. Roberta, you probably remember bumping into Larry Niven some, don't you?
I know I did.
Yep. Larry Niven used to come around the Malibu offices because he was the science fiction guy for the Ultraverse. So it was kind of interesting. Yeah, it was very cool having Larry Niven in the offices. So, all right then. Well, if there's no other thoughts, let's go around and tell folks where they can find you on the interwebs. John, how about you go first and tell folks where they can find you?
All right. Well, this long name that I have at the bottom of this square says the Viking Prince Voltan, John Martin. Pretty much put that on everything that is attached to me, so it's easy to find.
Excellent. And Pete, tell us what you were drawing on tonight, and then tell us where we can find you.
Tonight I'm finishing the last page of Champion and Miss Fury, which is page 14. I worked all out of order. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not a 14-page book. It's just this is the last one I've got to do.
You drew it out of order.
Yeah. So that's I'll finish that this morning. And where can you find me?
Yes.
Peter Clinton Art. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google. Just find me there.
Are you still have commissions open?
Yeah, it's Christmas. Still doing commissions.
All
so
right.
get in touch. Price list is all over my social media. So
all right. So
we
just
can
find
work
you.
Something out. Yeah.
Cool. And you'll draw pretty much any character. Will you? If someone's got a Dungeons and Dragons character that they've got a good description for, you
got a
do
description?
That?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll do anything.
So these commissions make great Christmas presents, y'all. Great Christmas presents for you to give to someone that you love, and great for Pete so that he can give some money to buy his your wife, right?
She wants some very expensive shoes.
Very expensive shoes.
Yes.
Really expensive shoes.
So Pete's drawing like a madman so that he can get money for these very expensive shoes.
Yeah, to get it now because it takes a while to post to America, so you better hurry up.
Yeah.
That's right. Aaron, what about you? Where can folks find you?
Facebook, under my name, Aaron Humphreys or Humphreys Illustration. Instagram at ALH3810. Webtoons, my Goblins comic is on Webtoons. And then I have which I never mentioned my store. It's Humphreys Illustration at BigCartel.com. I think that's what it is. And you can buy, you can he's selling commissions. I sell actual books, so you can go like buy books in my store and stuff. So yeah, there you go.
You can read those.
You can read those.
Yeah.
They're interactive.
So Godlings is on issue 9, right?
Yes, I'm finishing up issue 9. Hopefully, it's 1 through 8 is done. 9 will be done hopefully soon. Yeah.
And 1 through 8 is available.
Available, yes.
Okay,
And then I have 2 of my kids' books up there too. So kids' books make great.
They make great Christmas presents. That's right. That's right. Roberta, what about you? Tell folks what you've been coloring on, and then where they can find you online.
Oh, well, I'm working on the very first page of Cat and Mouse. So exciting. So, said New Orleans.
Yeah.
Scary night.
We should also
lots of clattering. Who knows what the ruckus is about? But obviously, the cat's not happy.
Yeah.
So
we need to make sure we remind people this is the very first issue of the next story.
Very first issue of the next story. The first one I'm going to be on.
Yes. No, it's not the first one you're going to be on, because you're going to be on.
Oh, that's right. I'm on number
4 that Alex Gallimore is drawing.
Yeah, count 4. So this would be next series.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Just a little out of order, but it's all good. So yeah.
Kind of.
Do you have a name for this yet?
It's going to be Cat and Mouse, but I have not come up with this. It's going to. I want to. I want to kind of figure out how to use voodoo somehow in the title. I'm not really sure that that'll work, but I will subtitle the story. But I don't have that yet. Yeah. And where can they find you online?
So I can be found at robyconroy.com or on Facebook and Instagram.
So I've been meaning to ask you, because of your title. Now, is Roby, is that a nickname for you?
Yeah, it's a nickname, but it's because I really held out to be on Facebook. I didn't want to be on Facebook. But there's apparently like 30 Roberta Conroys on the Facebook.
Wow.
So if you do a search for my name, I'm nowhere near it.
So I'm nowhere near it.
So it's okay if we start calling you Roby.
So I wanted it Roberta. You could call me Roby, but I mean, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So I have it. You could call me Roby if you want.
Okay. That won't make you mad, right?
No, it's easier.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, I'd seen your social media with that. I'm like, I wonder if that's your nickname.
No, it's just easier to find.
Okay. All right. And I am Roland Man. You can find me on all over the social medias too. Generally, I don't have a card here. Generally, you look for my caricature. I try to put my caricature up there to make it recognizable. But on Twitter, I am Man Roland. I think everything else, it's Roland Man. And so we will be Silverline crew will be back next Saturday as part of Comic Conway. Remember, we're going to start at 10 a.m. Central Time. So you'll have to figure that out depending on wherever you are. But until then, remember to make mine Silverline. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Catch you next time.